Welcome back to Choices. My name is Cameron Moffatt and I'm your host today. It's been estimated that Canadians spend around $7 billion a year on both dietary programs, weight loss supplements, and also diet books. And the Heart and Stroke Foundation just released a poll recently stating that 9 out of 10 people that are attempting to lose weight reported they did not have the resources to either lose the weight or to maintain the weight, nor did they have the support. And on the show today, we happen to have somebody who is in fact showing and offering this support. I'd like to introduce Ann Goodman. Ann is a Master of Neuro-Linguistic Programming and holds a diploma in both hypnotherapy and also in professional conversational hypnotism.
That's
so
right.
Welcome to the show, Ann. Thanks for
Thank
coming
you.
on. You also do, I understand, you facilitate a program called Wellness Eating.
It's an emotional eating program.
Emotional eating,
Yeah,
thank
I
you.
help people with all these statistics, and 95% of people who lose weight gain it back. And all the programs that you mentioned, they're stuff, they're gyms, they're personal trainers, they're powders and pills, but none of it really addresses the emotions.
Okay.
There's a study done recently, Kaiser Presidente, which is a medical consortium in the US, and the Center for Disease Control did a study called the ACE study, which is the Adverse Childhood Experiences study, showing with 17,000 people a huge correlation between adverse childhood experiences, childhood trauma, PTSD, things like that, and health issues, including overweight and obesity. So what I do with my clients is help them to address the emotions behind weight. When people eat simple carbs, that does make them feel better. So if they're trying to suppress emotions, eating the simple carbs does make them feel better because it produces tryptophan in the brain, which is a precursor to serotonin, which is your happy neurotransmitter, makes you feel good and calm and relaxed. Unfortunately, it doesn't last very long. And then when the serotonin depletes, people feel worse because they didn't stick to their diet and they ate a bunch of stuff they shouldn't have, and they feel fat and ugly. And then they start the negative self-talk, and that makes them feel even worse, and then they have more negative emotions to suppress. So the program that I offer people addresses, first of all, one of the first things I address with people is the resistance, or in psychological terms, secondary gain, which is when part of you wants to do something really good for yourself and another part of you is resisting it. Mm-hmm. So there's a number of techniques that I use with my clients to address the resistance. We do some journaling so that they can identify where they take themselves out. Okay. And then I help them to address, first of all, overlay emotions.
What do you mean by overlay emotions?
It's a term I created myself.
Okay.
How you feel about yourself that you have this issue.
Okay.
So the overlay emotions for emotional eating tend to be shame, guilt, anger at oneself, sadness, how did I get here, out of control.
Okay.
So using a variety of fast therapies, results-oriented therapies, such as EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, which is a technique that uses acupuncture points to reduce cortisol levels in the brain.
Okay.
Cortisol makes people hold on to fat, but it also is the stress hormone.
Right.
And
yes.
Too much of that stress hormone, of course, isn't very good for us. And hypnosis helps. It's a way of going into the unconscious mind where a lot of our limiting beliefs and negative emotions are stuck. Okay. And clearing up those emotions. The second step is helping people to reframe and change limiting beliefs, which are beliefs that they have about themselves and about life that limit them.
So you address all of these in this program?
Yes.
How long does the program last for?
It depends on different people.
Okay.
Everyone's a bit different. People who are really avid and do a lot of homework. The beauty of EFT in particular is that once you know how to use this technique, you can use it yourself. So the people that are more active in the program and do more homework get better results.
Now, do you run this on the weekends, or is it typically done in your practice throughout?
I do it in my practice. I do groups occasionally. but mostly it's one-on-one.
Okay.
I also, on my website, I have a page that's a password protected page for my emotional eating clients where they can access trances and EFT scripts and different craving control techniques, ways to address cravings if they feel at night.
So resources then that they can use on their own, which
Yeah,
is what
lots
that
of
poll
resources.
actually indicated, that most people were feeling they were not getting enough of.
Right. And another thing I do is if people are able to, sometimes the resistance does come up, but if they can call me or text me, I'll talk to them for 5 minutes before they actually eat the chips.
Right, right. So you act almost like a bit like a coach then as well.
Kind of a coach, yeah. I'm available for that for clients. I do like working with groups because, or two to four people, because then they can use each other as a resource and they don't have to use me.
Now, before the show, you had mentioned that girls by the age of 11.
By the age of 13, 60% of girls are dissatisfied with their bodies. By 14, it's specific areas of their bodies, their hips, thighs, and so on. By the age of 17, 70% of girls have been on a diet.
By the age of 17?
By the age of 17.
And
it's tragic.
And the stats keep showing that dieting in the conventional way does not work.
Well, it doesn't work, but also the ideal body image that the media presents to us is attainable by 5% of the population.
Yes. Yeah.
If you look at people at size, if you include face and hair, it's attainable by 1%. It's an impossible ideal, and we keep beating ourselves up trying to do something that's impossible to do.
Yes. Yeah.
And so my program is really designed to help people to just like themselves and like their bodies. I mean, can you really say to yourself, I love my body? That's what I want my clients to have.
Certainly. Well, are you encouraging then people to do any sort of physical activity?
A lot of times the resistance is what prevents them from doing the exercise.
Okay.
And a lot of that $7 billion that you spoke about does go to gyms and personal trainers, and absolutely exercise. I mean, logically, you know, if you eat well and exercise, you should be able to have a fit and healthy body.
Now, are there any types of exercise that you recommend or don't recommend?
No, I'm not an expert in exercise. I suggest people walk as
Certainly.
much as possible, and then find someone who is that expertise. I have lots of resources and contacts that I can refer people to
Perfect.
for exercise, and also nutritionists, naturopaths. You know, if people have a hormone imbalance or a thyroid problem, a naturopath is a good resource.
Good way to start.
For them to balance.
How many, on average, can you say, how many people have you found actually do have a thyroid issue or a hormone issue as opposed to an emotional eating issue?
Well, usually they're both, because
both.
the thyroid issue has made them overweight or sluggish, or you know, all those thyroid symptoms, and then the overweight makes them feel bad, but they don't realize that it's a physical issue, so then it turns into an emotional thing.
So that's really a thyroid issue, then creating an overweight issue, which then creates an emotional pattern in eating.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you find most of these emotional patterns go back, you'd mentioned earlier, go back to childhood?
Often. I was going to say after the limiting beliefs, then I help people to go back to those adverse childhood experiences. And it could be anything from, you know, where you were the chubby kid in ballet class to some guy at school bullied you or teased you, or, you know,
Sure.
someone, you heard something. I mean, for myself, I remember being 11 and hearing someone say, someone's big sister said, okay, well, let's measure ourselves. And I didn't know that was a thing until that moment. And
Right. And it's remarkable, isn't it, as children, what we actually remember. And from what I've read around the neuroscience of growing up and the brain developing, we actually as children remember from an emotional point of view as opposed to an actual physical event happening. We
That's right.
remember the emotions, and that's what sticks in our brains at a young age, much stronger than any sort of actual event.
Yeah, that's true.
And so those emotions can carry a lot of weight, can't they? A lot of
Well,
influence.
they get stuck, and the cortisol, that's the stress hormone, keeps being triggered by events that are similar to that.
Even though they're not truly happening now, based on the past, we're thinking then at that moment it's similar, and then the cortisol releasing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, in your program, so you use both the ETF,
EFT,
EFT,
Emotional
thank
Freedom
you.
Technique.
Thank you,
Yeah.
and also the hypnotherapy.
Hypnosis.
The
Yeah.
hypnosis. Okay. How long does the hypnosis last for? In the actual session, would it be a 10-minute event, or are you? Does it actually?
It varies. Sometimes I'll do a whole session of hypnosis with somebody. It depends what they need because everybody's a little bit different.
Okay.
Some people don't like to do EFT and they're not as motivated to do it on their own. So I'll do more hypnosis with them.
Okay.
So it varies.
It varies to the person.
I know how to do lots of modalities. I know lots of modalities to get the job done.
Good. Well, if you're focused towards getting some results, that certainly will help people a lot more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all the modalities I use are results-oriented therapies.
Okay. Now you've been in practice in Victoria for
17 years.
17 years.
Yeah.
Excellent. And we'll have Anne's contact information up on the screen at the end of the show. So hopefully people can contact you and see what you can do for them.
Yeah.
What are your hours, Anne?
I have flexible hours. Many of
Flexible
my
hours.
clients work during the day, so I'm available. I work Saturdays and into the evening often.
And you mentioned earlier that you will do group sessions if there are people who want to work together as a group. Do you
Yeah.
recommend that, or do you recommend more
Well,
singular?
it's nice to have the peer support. I think it's a
Okay.
very good thing, and plus it's all more cost effective for people.
So if people wanted to form a small group of, say, 4 or 5 or 6, that would be appropriate as well?
An even number is better for the peer support.
Okay,
And
that
you
you
can
can
have
work
partners.
together. Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd
great.
love to do that.
All right. Thank you very much. Oh, and how long do your sessions last for? How
An
long?
hour and a quarter.
An hour and a quarter.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for coming on to the show. That's been very, very insightful. And like many other practitioners in the past, we try to offer different choices. So certainly you're offering the resources to help people maintain and lose weight and also deal with the emotional aspects. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. We've run out of time. We're going to be taking the show over now to on location at a cafe in town called called Ingredients, and Ingredients Cafe and Health Food Store. And we're going to be discussing with the owner there, Cindy, how to do grainless cooking. And we're going to be looking at how she actually makes a delicious brownies and chocolate covering, all done grainlessly. So stay tuned for that. It's coming up in a moment. Welcome back. My name is Cameron Moffatt, and you are watching Choices. On our last episode, we had the chance to interview a nutritionist, and on that show we learned the importance of how you eat, what you eat, and the effects that the nutrition has on the body. Today what we'd like to do is bring that knowledge now into your kitchen by sharing with you some recipes, and specifically we're going to be looking at grainless cooking and the values of not using quite so many grains. And to help us through this mire of information is Cindy Meiklejohn. And Cindy, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Cameron.
Cindy is the co-owner of Ingredients Cafe and Community Market, and it's one of the largest full organic markets here in the city, and it also boasts one of the best sprouting seeds.
Yes, in bulk.
In bulk.
That's right.
Perfect.
Probably in BC, I don't know.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Why don't we start off, if you want to let the viewers know what we're doing today.
Okay, so we're going to explain a little bit about a plant-based grain-free diet, and because there's a lot of popularity around the paleo diet, which is very meat and animal product based.
Right.
So I just want to plant a seed about using just plant-based foods to have the same results.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to demo a very fun recipe for black bean brownies.
Without grains.
Without grains.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah.
Okay. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with the perils of grains, grains are a very important part of a healthy diet. But there is some thought now that we're overdoing grains in our culture and in our diets. Some of the things that can actually show up with excessive grain consumption are arthritis, autism. We can actually have allergies from too many grains. Even things like mental disorders of depression, anxiety, and schizophrenia have been linked with excessive grains.
Yeah.
So what you're going to show us today then is a way of still eating fun,
Yeah,
but not consuming quite so many grains.
that's right.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, I was really inspired by the book, The Wheat Belly Diet. And, really getting back to whole food is very important. So we don't want to eliminate a whole food group.
Right.
I think that's a danger as well. But, if you are eating grains, having whole grains and organic, of course, because we wouldn't want to consume any, genetically modified products.
Right.
And then when you sprout them, like soak them properly and sprout them, it does change the nature of them and how the body digests them as well. So if you are eating grains, there are different ways to treat them so that
So
they're much
sprouted-
more,
Sprouted is
nutritious.
definitely the way to go then, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't take a lot of extra time and certainly no more extra cost. So,
Okay, all right. So these are the ingredients, I gather, for the brownies.
yes, they are.
Maybe you can go through those for us and explain what each one is.
Yeah, absolutely. So the main ingredient, which seems kind of odd, is black beans. And these are organic black beans that I have soaked for about 18 hours. And then I've rinsed them and I've let them sit with just a damp cloth over top so that they essentially germinate. And what happens, all grains and beans contain a substance called phytic acid, which it's an enzyme inhibitor that coats the grain or seed or bean, and it protects it until it's ready to sprout and reproduce,
Okay.
so to speak. So when you soak and you trigger this life force, the phytic acid is removed, and then it just makes the product that much more digestible. And because the phytic acid actually inhibits the absorption of minerals.
Into our bodies.
Yeah, and that's why you see a lot of things that are sprouted now. That's one of the main reasons.
Okay.
Sprouting will unleash a whole other range of nutrients from the bean, and so with these beans, it's not only making them more digestible and more nutritious, it's also just making it a much tastier product, I
Sure,
think.
that helps.
Yeah.
In preparation for the show, I was reading a little bit about sprouting, and what the theory is, and you tell me if this is right, that they used to cut the grains in the fields, and they would sit in the fields for maybe 3 or 4 days, get some rain on it, whatever, and there'd be a washing of that acid you were mentioning. But nowadays, with the constant, they cut it and they bag it, and it's already on the table within weeks. It doesn't have that chance to be washed out.
Yeah, definitely.
So what we're doing basically is washing out all that acid
Yeah,
by soaking it.
essentially.
And sprouting
Yeah.
wonderful. Okay. Onwards.
Yeah.
What else?
So then the beans, it's a little bit of a process, in that you soak it. So what we do here in the cafe, at least, is we do a great big vat of them. And then so we'll put some in soup, and then we'll make a recipe such as this. And then what we don't use, you can store for probably about 3 days.
In the refrigerator.
Yeah, in the refrigerator, and once they're cooked, because unlike certain seeds that you can eat raw once they're sprouted, beans you essentially have to cook them.
Okay.
Yeah, because they can be a little bit toxic. Lentils are an exception, and adzuki beans as well, and mung beans. Mung beans are very good, yeah, raw. So if you're making hummus, like we have a very good hummus, people buy it and come back for more because they're like, wow, I can digest this,
Right.
and it doesn't cause any gassiness. So, and that's why, is we sprout it and then we cook it. Yeah, so it makes it very nice. And then if you're not going to utilize the beans that you've cooked in 3 days, you can put them in bags and freeze them as well.
And how long will they keep as a freezer?
Oh gosh, 6 months easily.
Oh, easily. Okay.
As long as they don't get freezer burnt, if you store them properly.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the main ingredient, and that adds the bulk of the body. As you can see from this little tray here, there actually isn't any flour at all.
Can you just go through and tell us what each one of these ingredients are?
Yes, absolutely. So the black beans are the main ingredient, and then we've got some cocoa powder,
Okay.
and it's fair trade and organic, of course, because we want to be very responsible about that. We've got some melted coconut oil for our fat in the recipe.
Okay.
Fat's a very important thing to have in the diet, and of course it makes baked products much more palatable. We like to use coconut oil, not exclusively, but it's a very healthy fat. It's has it's just a very clean energy for the body.
Right. It's easy to convert and burn.
That's right. Your body accepts it as a fuel source instead of storing it so much as fat. And then we're also using coconut sugar. It is our preferred sweetener because it's a very whole food. It's not overly processed, and then it's quite low on the glycemic index as
Now,
well.
just for the audience, maybe you can explain what that means by low glycemic.
So it's not spiking blood sugar. So when you eat it, you know, like a refined sugar or even, you know, fruit, like a concentrated fruit juice,
Sure.
it will spike the blood sugar. So this is a more sustained energy. And, you know, even diabetics can often eat it.
I was just wondering that for somebody who is possibly pre-diabetic,
Yeah, it's
that
a
would
very
be a
good
alternative,
sugar.
and it's not hitting the insulin levels quite so hard.
Exactly, yeah. And as you can see, it looks quite, you know, a lot just like regular brown sugar. It's not quite as sweet, so you can use a little bit less or just have a less sweet product,
Sure.
which, you know, is great. This is another thing that's a very great thing for a plant-based diet is flax eggs. So in here there's, to make one flax, there's 2 flax eggs in here. So it's 2.5 tablespoons of ground flax seeds with 6 tablespoons of water. And then it's just left to soak. So not only does it take the place of eggs in the recipe, it also is a very good fiber. It's like a prebiotic fiber that you know, just helps with the intestinal health, and it creates a like a house for the good probiotics that you need, you know, for a healthy system to flourish. So it's serving quite a few you know, areas in the recipe.
This is probably a good time to mention, Cindy, that your cafe is all vegan.
It is a vegetarian cafe, but we have a vegan option for everything that we offer on the menu.
And it's all organic.
All organic.
Wonderful. So,
Yeah.
so there's really no chicken egg in there.
No chicken egg.
And what else do we have here then?
So we've got some chocolate chips, which again are fair trade and organic. And you know, chocolate is, there's lots of people that love chocolate. It's a food group as far as I'm concerned.
And many people would agree with you on that.
that's
Yeah.
right. So, and then again, it's really important to try and just get fair trade chocolate, because there still is actually a lot of slavery going on in the world. Sugar and chocolate are something that we really insist on having fair trade. You know, again, just being accountable for what you're eating. You know, how is it affecting the rest of the world?
Sure.
Just having your eyes open. And then we've got a little bit of pink salt. So this is a Himalayan salt that, this one is actually a Redmond salt, so it's from Utah. And a regular salt is, you know, often the sea salt is from the sea. Nowadays, you know, there's a lot of worry about whether the oceans are, you know, getting
clean enough.
Yeah, that's right. So this is actually a fossilized seabed.
Ah, so
Yeah.
from a long time ago.
Yes, that's right. So it contains over 70 trace minerals.
Okay.
And it's what we like to use.
Perfect.
Yeah, and then some nice organic vanilla and some baking powder.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then just to beef up the protein a little bit more, we've got some BC hazelnuts. And so, you know, there are things coming from elsewhere in the world, but this is close to home. Same with the flax seeds.
Sure.
And so we're supporting the global economy, but there's also a little bit of closer to home.
Now, earlier in the show, you brought up the hemp hearts. Would you include that in those, or is this something different?
You could. Hemp hearts are a little bit of a fragile fatty acid.
Okay.
So you can put them in baked goods, but to protect and to preserve the good essential fatty acids, it's better not to heat them.
To heating. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So you definitely would be adding more nutrition, more protein. There's it's actually called nature's perfect food. Because it has such a complex nutrient profile.
Okay.
And the essential fatty acids, there's actually all of them. There's 3, 6, and 9.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And they just don't heat it much at all.
yeah, it's best, like we like to add it to smoothies. We have it in a lot of our baked you know, raw desserts
right.
that we make here.
Yeah.
And so it's really a good choice for boosting your protein, even your iron levels. All you really need is 2 tablespoons. So if you were to have a smoothie, you could add in 2 tablespoons.
That's not much at all.
No.
No. So a bag like this would actually go quite a ways.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So, and I think about that sometimes when people say that organic food is expensive. Like, so this bag, there's countless servings in here. And it's just over $15.
Right.
Well, people would very easily buy a steak for $15 for one portion,
meal.
for
Right.
one serving.
Right.
So relatively, it's very inexpensive.
Right.
And then even nuts, people have been a bit anxious because the price of nuts have gone up quite a bit this year with all the drought that's happening. But if you still think of it relatively, they are cheaper than a kilo of a good cut of steak.
Right, and your heart's going to thank you a lot
Oh
more
yeah,
on that or that
Definitely.
than eating steak every night for your protein.
definitely. Yeah. So this is where the plant-based diet can be not only good for you, for your health, but also for the world,
Sure.
for the earth. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. So, and then before we delve into doing the recipe, there's other options too for, like, this is really a fun product, kelp noodles. There's 0 carbs.
Oh,
So you can have your pasta and you can
and not put on any weight.
That's right. Yeah. So, and they're a little bit like the bean thread noodles. They're a bit springy,
Okay.
but they make an awesome pad thai, and you can even use them just as a regular noodle.
And they have kelp in them,
They're made just from kelp.
so the iodine
Yeah.
helps the
that's right.
thyroid.
Water, kelp, and sodium alginate, which is a derivative from sea salt.
Perfect.
So yeah, that's a very fun addition.
Okay.
We make a great Thai noodle salad here.
So you could actually eat that raw then in the salad.
Absolutely.
You don't have to cook it.
You don't need to cook it at all. Actually, you don't want to cook it. So if you were using it as a pasta replacement, you would just put hot water in it to warm it up that way,
Right.
and
And then
that's
eat it.
it.
Perfect.
Yeah. So a good camping food too, right?
That
With
would- I
summer
never thought
coming
of that.
up.
Yes. I
Yeah.
never thought of that. Now, we didn't mention that your cafe has a lot of raw options as well.
Yes.
And that's something I know you're fairly passionate about is raw foods.
Yeah, definitely. I've never been fanatical in that, that's all I would want to eat, because especially, eating seasonally in the wintertime,
Right.
you're much more drawn to cooked foods and warm foods.
Sure.
But definitely with the summer coming up, salads, and we make our own almond milk in the cafe.
Okay.
Because we don't want to be having all that waste with the Tetra Paks, and of course it's delicious,
Right.
much more so than
Yes.
the packaged.
I can attest to
product.
that. It's very
Yeah,
good.
It's very good, and we use the hemp in it as well. So, because hemp is grown in Canada, it's it's important to us to be supporting Canadian agriculture.
Perfect.
Yeah, but so anyways, we're left with all this almond pulp after making the almond milk. So we've derived some very good recipes using the almond pulp, and then other ingredients as well,
Sure.
seeds and lots of hemp and vegetables. So we make falafels that are raw. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and then we also make a burger with beets. Very delicious. It looks quite uncannily like a ground beef burger.
Sure, I guess the beets would give it that. Yes.
Yeah. And but yeah, just all plant-based. And then we make a cashew sunflower cheese that we use on that. And yeah.
I look forward to trying all of this after.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So why don't we now show the audience how easy it is, in fact, to actually
Okay.
blend this all up and actually make it. Because I think that's one of the things that many people with the grainless cooking expect it to be much harder, much more complex.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're going to show us that it's not.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and like in raw food, there certainly are recipes that are very complex and take days to do, but then there are other things that are super easy, much easier than any cooked recipe.
Let's start with those first.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so this is how easy it is, really. You have your food processor. Most kitchens have them. And if you didn't have them, you could try and do it in a blender, but you would have to do it in stages.
Okay.
Yeah. So you essentially put all of the ingredients in any order. There's, well, except for the nuts and the chocolate chips. So there goes our eggs. No worrying about whether the chickens are free run or free range or anything like that. We know these flax seeds were free range.
Free range flax.
Yeah. and the cocoa powder, and then the oil to help to stick it all together and give us some good clean energy, and the coconut sugar. So we're also going to show the recipe at the end of the show for if any of the folks want to take the recipe down and make it themselves. And the vanilla and baking powder to help it rise a bit, and then a little bit of pink salt. So we'll just pulse it up a little bit before adding the other ingredients. And so just for time, we're just going to demonstrate a little bit of the pulsing. And then once it's blended, then we would let it run for about 2 or 3 minutes till it gets almost a bit fluffy.
Okay.
So you could actually put the coconut sugar in first and blend it so it's a lot finer. You'd get a bit of a smoother product.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's hard to think of beans as being fluffy. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested in
I know,
seeing
it is. It's very interesting. And it's also, you want to have it so it's a little bit thicker than icing, you know, the consistency of icing. So you don't want it really runny. But if it was too thick, depending on your beans, if they were a bit drier or what have you, you could add a couple of tablespoons of water.
Water, okay.
Yeah.
So then after you've pulsed it for a couple minutes, is that when you'd later add?
Then you would add these. You could chop these by hand, but I'm a person that likes to do things very easily. So I would put these just right in and pulse them a few times just to chop them up.
Sure.
Just like that.
Okay, and then you would have that, and then you bake it right like that.
Yeah. Then you would have your muffin pans all ready. Thank you. And you would just ladle it in. It's about 1/3 of a cup in each, so distributed evenly between 12 muffin cups.
Now I know some of these liners can have paraffin wax in them. Is there something that you recommend that is a bit more healthy?
Yeah, well, these ones are made by a company actually from Finland called If You Care, and they're a healthy alternative.
Perfect.
Yeah, definitely. And biodegradable, of course.
Of course.
So I'm just going to set this down. And then here is the finished product. So
And that's the finished product.
that's the finished product.
My goodness. Now how long would you bake them for?
So it's between 20 and 25 minutes.
Okay.
So depending on your oven, the elevation that you're at. And
Right. At
Yeah.
about 350.
it's at 350, yeah. So are you ready to try one, or shall we wait?
I've been waiting since they came up out of the oven.
So that's what they look like.
Thank you. So let's just get a close-up, if we can, on these, and notice that you really can't tell that that's made from beans. That
It's
looks
very
like
dark. That's
it's
from the
very
cocoa
dark.
mostly.
That's the cocoa,
Yeah.
yes. And then let's try a piece. Let's see what this tastes like.
What's the verdict?
I would, excuse me, I would never know that that is not flour of some
Is
sort.
that right?
I would think I'm eating some kind of grain-based muffin. It's also delicious. It is very, very good.
Right.
And not too sweet. I see what you mean about the coconut sugar.
that's
It's not
right.
really sweet. No, that is actually very good.
So you could never guess that there was black beans in there.
No, I wouldn't go, I'm now eating a black bean brownie. Not at all. I actually wouldn't know what I was eating.
Yeah.
You know. So for people who have a bit of an aversion to the idea of eating beans as a substitute for grains, there is no aversion.
No.
There's no really reason to be concerned about it at all. What got you involved in all of this?
Well, for some strange reason, I don't know where it came from, but I've always been a real health advocate, even when I was a teenager.
Okay.
And then so it's really just been a lifelong questing to find out, you know, what's the best food.
Right.
And then when I had children, it was, you know, like how do I keep them healthy?
Right.
So just constantly on the lookout for things that are healthy, and then started getting into the organic scene, and then that just sort of all the inroads led to, you know, different questing, and then now it's, you know, evolved to starting the store.
And how long have you been in business now?
So this location has been open for about 2.5 years.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, and I've been in the industry for probably about 30 years. So, you know, things change and shift as you go along. But food as medicine is really, you know, probably my strongest passion on staying healthy by what you put into your body. You know, and obviously lifestyle, you know, whether
it's
you're
a component of the
exercising.
whole package.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what else do you have in your bakery in the way of grainless cooking that people could maybe come in and try besides the brownies?
Well, certainly we have the kelp noodle salad, and then we have the raw falafel plate, you know, which is a beautiful salad with the protein component from nuts and seeds, and then the raw almond burger. Yeah, and then our soups, we always have 2 soups every day, and they're always grain-free and vegan, of course, and gluten-free.
Oh, perfect.
So yeah, I didn't mention that our bakery is celiac friendly. So
Right, no, we didn't mention that. That's important,
Yeah.
yes. Certainly people are becoming more and more aware now these days of the gluten issues with digestion. I see a lot of that in my practice, digestive issues brought on by too much gluten or an outright intolerance to gluten. So that's wonderful. You offer all of those options.
Yeah, and I have seen a lot of people that have switched to a gluten-free diet, and you know they have had a lot of health issues resolved from it. And you know whether it's going to just a healthier way of eating, you know, or whether it is the gluten, you know, getting the gluten out of their diet, what the contributing factor is. But I know that there's also a lot of gluten-free products out on the market that are very sugary.
Yeah,
you know, no, they're not very good for you at all.
So quickly mention then, as a consumer of gluten-free products, what would they want to look for not to have in there? What types?
Well, like potato and cornstarch, those are 2 things that I think, you know, are just not even food, you know. And they're very starchy, and you know, it's almost impossible to get organic, so quite likely they're genetically modified, you know, for one thing. And then the whole idea, like celiac disease, where the villi are compromised and then they're damaged. Well, then if they go to a gluten-free diet and they buy just regular packaged gluten-free products that contain a lot of processed sugar, sugar actually damages the villi in the stomach as well.
So the villi are the little finger spokes that actually pick up your nutrients, and unless they're waving, kind of like the kelp in the seabed, unless they're not if they're not picking up the nutrients, you're not going to be healthy.
No, that's right.
That's right.
So again, you know, getting rid of gluten is great and can help a lot of people, but keeping in mind, you know, having a whole food diet still, because you can buy gluten-free flours that are very nutritious. You know, there's quinoa flour, amaranth flour, they're both higher protein, so they're not as starchy, and you know, there's lots of great options.
Sounds like we need to do this again.
Yeah.
And have a whole new show on just the alternative to gluten.
Yeah, sounds wonderful.
Cindy, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Watch my chocolate chip fingers. I got chocolate chips. Thank you very much for coming on the show. What you've shared with us today will certainly help people get into a more a grainless diet, maybe a plant-based diet.
Great.
Thank you very much, folks, for watching the show. On behalf of myself and the crew here at Choices, we thank you for watching, and we hope that you have found this informative and useful.